Hi everyone, welcome to the visual guide for Alexandria. This is the level 100 MSQ dungeon made available by patch 7.0 in Final Fantasy XIV Dawntrail. If you find yourself getting overexposed to virulent players, you might need to strengthen that immune response to wiping. No need to disassemble your group. I'm here to help you eliminate that fear, run that victory subroutine, and generate those current loot rewards. My name is Ms. Tech and I'll be your dungeon guide. In this first section of Trash, players will have to deal with a number of immunization protocols that throw out familiar AoE attacks. Watch your feet as you burn everything down. The first boss is Antivirus X. The boss is stationary and will remain in place throughout the encounter. Immune Response is a large frontal cone attack that all players will need to move away from. A debuff wall around the outer edge of the arena will also form at this time. The next Immune Response is essentially the opposite of that first cast, affecting everywhere but the front of the boss. Players will need to move in front of the boss to avoid getting hit. When the boss initiates foreign entity removal, these small purple circles will appear around it. As the circles begin to activate, symbols will appear over them, indicating the type of attack players can expect out of them. The ring denotes an incoming donut attack, while the cross denotes an incoming cross-shaped line attack. Players will need to adjust for each attack as necessary. Each attack goes off fairly quickly, so make sure you're ready to move for each one. The boss will cast another immune response as the final attacks are going off during this time, so make sure you adjust for that immediately after. Quarantine will target the primary target with a heavy hitting tank buster, and mark up another player with this stack up marker. All players but the tank will need to stand with this player to share the incoming damage, while the tank takes their tank buster alone. Don't forget to cool down and heal. During the next foreign entity removal circles, the boss will cast immune response as the first removal circle attacks are going off, and players will have to dodge both mechanics at the same time. From this point on, you'll notice more overlap of mechanics, but everything is handled in the same manner. Cytolysis will deal high group-wide damage. Healers, do your thing. All of these mechanics will repeat until the boss is down. In the next section of Trash, the ads throw out some really big AoEs, so make sure you move out of the way as you burn everything down. The second boss is Amalgam. Electro Wave will deal high group-wide damage. Shield and heal as necessary. When the boss casts disassembly, they'll explode into tiny pieces, dealing more group-wide damage before reappearing over the platform. A triangle shape will begin to take form, and all players will need to move away from this area to avoid the incoming blast. After the blast, the boss will return to normal. Centralized Current will form a line through the boss, indicating a very large line attack is about to go off. Players will need to move to the sides of the boss far enough away to avoid getting hit by the wide line. Split Current will again form the same lines, but this time they appear on the far sides of the boss, and players will need to move close to the boss instead to avoid getting hit. During the next disassembly cast, players will need to be on the lookout for both the forming triangle attack and line attacks around the boss. Immediately after, players will be targeted by these circle markers, and they'll need to spread apart to avoid overlap. Amalgamite will target the primary target with a heavy hitting tank buster. Cooldown and heal as necessary. During the next disassembly cast, players will have to dodge multiple sets of ground AoE circles that appear underneath them. Find the safe lane between the boss line attacks while also dodging the triangle formation, and then immediately spread to avoid overlapping the final circle attack. Super Bolt will target a player with this stack up marker. The group will need to stand together to share the incoming damage. Ternary Charge is a growing AoE that begins with a point blank circle. Players can dodge the first circle attack before moving into the boss to avoid the rest of the attack. Mechanics will repeat until the boss is down. The final section of Trash is pretty straightforward. Watch for the line and circle AoE attacks as you burn everything down. The final boss is Eliminator. Disruption will deal heavy group-wide damage. Healers be ready with those shields and heals. The boss will leap to the center and begin to cast Partition. The sword will begin to glow, and players will need to move away from that side of the boss to avoid the incoming half-room cleave. The boss will then cast Reconfigured Partition, moving the glowing sword to the opposite side. This will deal another half-room cleave, so make sure you're out of the way. Subroutine will spawn a hand ad somewhere on the edge of the platform. This ad will throw out a line attack across the room. At the same time, the boss is casting Reconfigured Partition again, and players must move into the area safe from both the overlapping sword cleave and the hand line attack. The next subroutine will spawn an ad over the platform that will create rotating laser beams. Players will need to run into this area to avoid the incoming room-wide donut attack. Again, the boss is casting the half-room cleave, so make sure you're dodging that at the same time. Immediately after, players will be targeted with these circle markers, and they'll need to quickly spread apart to avoid overlapping damage. Overexposure will target a player with this lineup marker. The group will need to stand together to share the incoming damage. During the next subroutine, the boss will become invulnerable and begin to charge up their gauge bar, while multiple generators pop out of the ground. Players will have to destroy these generators to stop the gauge from reaching 100. At the same time, hand ads will continue to throw out their attacks attacks that must be dodged appropriately. Additionally, an Elimbit ad will appear that will target all players with these line attacks. Spread to avoid overlap as you continue to destroy the generators. Players will be targeted with this lineup marker, and the group will need to stand together to share the damage of the blast. Once the final generator is destroyed, the boss will return to the platform and cast Hollow Arc. This does high group-wide damage based on the level of the gauge, so be ready with some cooldowns, shields, and heals. During the next subroutine, a blue knockback circle will appear on the platform, and the Elimbit will again target players with line attacks. Players can use a knockback immunity or position themselves to avoid getting knocked into the wall. After the knockback, be sure to spread to avoid overlapping the line attacks. Elimination will deal group-wide damage over multiple hits, while the arena is covered by multiple laser lines that appear in succession. These lines will explode in the same order that they appeared in, and players will need to dodge each one accordingly. All of these mechanics will repeat with some overlap until the boss is destroyed. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. Up next, we'll head into Tender Valley. As always, thanks for watching. Till next time.